the whining. You have the violin music to play while the Denver and the Chicago mayor and the New York City mayor whine.
I'll get on that.
I want to make sure it's on their radar. Next thing you know, Columbia, St. Louis, Kansas City, Spring, sanctuary cities. I don't want it to happen.
Well, I don't know, and again, you feel free to bring that up. We'll have them on. I do know that State Representative Chris Dinkins, who is from Annapolis, who is running for the Senate, has very publicly called on the governor to step in and to block any sort of resettlement. She certainly has. I've not heard any other calls similar to that. The governor has kind of rejected. He doesn't believe he has the authority to do that. Specifically what she was calling for. So the other thing I think is worth mentioning, not as nearly as controversial, but very important, that I talked to Representative Jim Schulte about just last week, was the fact that he was in a closed-door meeting. I shouldn't say closed-door. He was briefed by MoDOT, although the public wasn't there. It was the lawmakers from Mid-Missouri and MoDOT about the I-70 project. And they told him, and I think this is significant, it's not been reported anywhere else, that they are going to award a contract for the I-70 project for that stretch between Kingdom City and Columbia in February, start construction in May, and they told him that it's going to take 3 years to do that stretch.
I know. That's the other
That's
topic.
Significant. That, quite frankly, that might be bigger than anything going on in the General Assembly. And people don't think it is. When you're stuck in traffic, you're going to probably think it is.
Right.
But again, that is the kind of stuff that affects everyone.
That's right. And my wife and I we're going to St. Louis area to visit Mom and the in-laws last weekend. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I picked up a virus from, get a little 24-hour virus.
Sure.
When all these mixologists.
I mean, you might have gotten it from Hannah.
No, mine was a little longer than 24 hours.
No, if I had COVID, it was a 24-hour airborne and NyQuil. Bam, done, gone, sleep, over.
Okay.
And I'm glad for viruses. They exercise our immune system. They're very good for us. At any rate, and we're driving back, and I asked my wife that question. We got to Kingdom City. I said, we're going to suffer here with all kinds of detouritis for a long time, and I hope to God that they're working on that. I hope that the powers that be at MoDOT and everywhere else, whether you're incoming, whether you're outgoing, whether you're that's going to be a big mess.
It's going to be terrible. There's no way around it, I don't think. I mean, it will be wonderful once it's completed, but yeah, I'm already considering. I actually personally like the Amtrak to St. Louis. I really do. I ride it probably twice a year.
Really?
Yeah, and so I mean, I think they were running twice a day, and I think they're back during COVID. They went back down to once a day, but I think they're back to twice a day. If you're not in a hurry and your schedule is flexible, it's actually, I like it because I can work, and of course I bill by the hour. So when I drive for 5 hours, I can't bill. If I ride the train, they have Wi-Fi. You can work.
Yeah, no, I know. When we used to drive from Quincy, when we lived up in Northeast, we would go from Quincy, nice, quiet little old station there, beautiful pickup there, right on time. And we would take the 4 hour, whatever it was. It was almost as long as drive. But we took the business class, which is only a couple bucks more.
I always
You can
take the
stretch
business
out,
class.
you can relax, you
get
Wi-Fi.
a newspaper?
Yeah, it's nice.
And they have a really
Get a
nice
newspaper?
a nice little area where you can get a beverage and something to eat. But the Amtrak bill Amtrak comes up every year, and there is bipartisan support to keep that running. And you're right, Stephanie, it is running two times a day. But I do think, and again, the governor warned, and again, we knew that this was going to be happening, $2.8 billion, but it's going to be happening faster than I think people thought. They'll award the contract in April. But 3 years to complete that project. The problem, you think about that. It's not that far, Kingdom City to Columbia, but that's, I believe, 19 miles. I think I timed it in my car. And you're talking about not just rebuilding and resurfacing that whole stretch, which is very busy. That's, a lot of trucks over the years have gone over it, and then adding a third lane. So, I've heard from some listeners that say, I've heard just what Stephanie said, that they're going to use the Amtrak. But I've also heard people say they're going to go down and use Highway 50 in Jefferson City. And that's 50 to Lynn is pretty decent, but you get past Lynn and on the way over towards Union and Washington, and that's 2-lane. I always get worried about if somebody's coming the wrong way or trying to pass somebody in the car. So it's just there's going to be a lot of things there. But Jim Schulte was in on that closed door meeting, and he can brief us a little more in detail.
Oh, he probably, if he did, he'd have to kill us. One of those things.
And there was nothing said in there. I mean, he came on a news story with me and talked about it. But
Jim will give us
a
briefing.
It was, and Cindy O'Loughlin, the last time she was on, by the way, she really had some serious questions about DESE, and so we'll see.
Okay, yeah, because education's high on her list.
Very huge.
She's a powerhouse. She has like the best Facebook in all of the Senate.
I tell you, she is. I consider there are legislators who are your who you feel are your citizen. As a citizen, they're your friend. When you talk to them, they actually are listening. And so now she happened to be my state senator when she was up there, and we interacted when the COVID thing was going on and all that. And she's concerned about rural health care. So I appreciated her insight into that and her doing her homework, which she really does. Mm-hmm. She's got some tall orders, though, this session, right? I mean, with all the divisiveness and with senators running for state office, which means it's going to be a cluster. It's going to be a mess.
It is going to be a mess, and we're less than a week away.
But we love it because that feeds that's just like octane for us on talk radio. We love it. It's great. And Hannah, I know Hannah's really working up a lot of questions for the political season. Yes. That's what I mean, right, Hannah? Aren't you just isn't your little spiral notebook just full of questions, or you on just page 8, 9, 10 now of single space questions for the politicians?
Yeah, and most of the questions are why.
And how about girl math? Are you going to be asking them about girl math, whether that's going to be put into state statute or not? Maybe a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, lots of them are very good at girl math.
Yeah, they are. That's right. They know, especially in the Democratic side of the ledger. So anyway, the number's 573-874-9390. James says Highway 50 is going to be a congested nightmare as a side effect. There's no doubt about that. Sean says, be thankful they're doing Columbia's section of I-70 first. Hopefully it'll be completed before the money runs out. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms because, can we count on inflation being 1.7? Now it's down to 2.7%, I guess, and 1.7 last month year over year for some goods and services. But, I mean, I just don't think that's working out very well in the long run. And, but there's lots going on in the national scene. I'm telling you, the oil prices are going to continue to go up. We're looking at a map of the destroyers in the Red Sea area and blocking the canal into the Mediterranean. The Houthis are raising hell with people over there. That's going to impact you at the gas pump. It already has a little bit. Things have risen a little bit. BP stopped shipping oil through there. So once again, thank you, Joe. I mean, even though domestic oil happens to be up now, we were hurt for so long, and so many of the oil-producing infrastructure, so much of that was crippled for a while. So hopefully that'll get back online because when oil is flowing and abundant and cheap, the economy is prosperous and abundant, and goods are cheaper as well for a number of reasons. I'm Randy Tobler along with Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah out there, and Brian Hauswirth. John Marsh is getting a little vacation, right, Sarah?
Oh, yeah.
He is. He'll be back on Tuesday.
Did he share where he's vacationing?
He did not.
I was going to harass him, maybe.
I think he's on that 9-month cruise.
I hope not. I did not give him that much PTO.
The 9-month cruise. All right. We'll step aside, take a little break, and then when we come back, it's the D.C. rundown with our own Stephanie Bell. There's nothing going on there.
that then will allow Trump to stay on the primary ballot. At the same time, we're still watching Colorado. Now, the Colorado Republican Party has appealed their Supreme Court's decision to keep him off of the ballot. And if we head over to the polls, I really kind of expected a bump for him from all of the Colorado stuff, and he really hasn't gotten a bump, but he can't really get a bump because he's so far ahead
when you're
already.
so high, your bump's going to hit the ceiling.
So on the national polls, he is currently, the latest poll has him at plus 38, in Iowa plus 34, New Hampshire plus 30. So he's still killing it.
Did you see where the New York Times was saying that insiders in the DeSantis campaign say it's campaign hospice time?
I
Did you see that?
It's been
keeping him comfortable.
It's been campaign hospice time on Camp DeSantis for a while, hasn't
Bob
it?
Vonderplatz, a big wig with the family leader up there, big evangelical leader in Iowa, says no. What he's hearing on the ground is there's going to be a surprise.
A surprise.
Going to be a surprise.
We're less than a month out. I mean, you think I really don't think there's going to be a surprise.
I did want to ask you, I talked with Zach Smith from Heritage last night on my program.
Okay.
And I brought up this issue of Jack Smith trying to re-gag Trump. He went to the judge in that case and said, before the appeals court has even heard anything, and the case has been rested or stayed. What is it?
Stayed, yeah.
Okay, so it's sort of like in idle mode, is that right?
Correct, yep.
And Zach said he has never heard anything about, his word was chutzpah. And I said, look at Jack, that testosterone, growing that beard. He's got a lot. I bet he's hitting the testosterone shops.
Yeah,
What's with that? What's your opinion?
I mean, I think right now Jack Smith's doing a whole bunch of stuff that's never been done before, and all they want to do is just target Trump. And so I don't think the court's going to go for that. And Trump's been gagged in other situations, but I mean, I respect the First Amendment, and I think the court should as well.
So what he was saying is that he's going to taint the jury pool by criticizing the motive and the theory of the trial. Well, why can't you do that? I mean, he's a free man. He's not convicted.
I mean, we've had lots of different high-profile trials, criminal and otherwise, that haven't involved Trump, where people hear what people have to say about what's going on.
If you were his attorney, you'd probably advise that he shut up, right?
I feel so bad for his attorneys. I'm sure they do, and he never does. He never does. He keeps talking, and that has to be frustrating, I'm sure, for his attorneys.
Maybe he figures that he's going to get convicted, and he might as well try to win the political battle and make some lemonade out of lemon.
Yeah, I mean, try it in the press. I don't know what Trump's up to. He's a hard guy to predict. Well, other things that are happening on this front, Biden is facing the migrants issue. There's a 6,000 person, perhaps more, caravan of migrants working their way up to the border. So not a good look for Biden, of course. He has done nothing on the border and has no plan. And but do you know when they're expected to arrive? I don't think I've heard.
I don't know,
exactly.
But maybe, hopefully, after he gets back from vacation in St. Vincent. Where is he? St. Vincent
or St. Croix or something?
He's down in the Caribbean, right? I mean, are you kidding me? What about the optics of that? How tone deaf?
He's been on vacation a lot, and probably
yeah, right.
At some points, I think maybe it's better that he's on vacation. I certainly think the people who are actually running the country in D.C. think that it's better when he's out of town. Also, we are seeing a lot of pro-Palestinian protests. They're actually blocking airports. They were in L.A. and at JFK, trying to keep people from getting to airports, so not looking very good there. And then also we've got this new thing. So, and I didn't know this, but I found it out, and I think people should know. On the pro-Palestinian front, people are commenting watermelon emojis. And if you see a watermelon emoji, it means pro-Palestine. And I did not know that. And there was some post and they dropped all these watermelon emojis. And apparently because the Palestinian flag is red, green, black, and white, they've taken the watermelon emoji. And so if you're seeing that online, it doesn't mean watermelon. It means pro-Palestine. So just be careful.
What if you prefer Schulte. How you doing, Jim? Thank you for joining us.
Doing great, Randy. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Hey,
Good morning to
I know
everyone else there.
things are getting exciting as you're warming up for a exciting what appears to be probably a pretty interesting and potentially tumultuous legislative session in Jefferson City, eh?
Yeah, it's starting to sound like that. Listening to some of the bills that have already been pre-filed and who's sponsoring them. Yeah, it should be a good session.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, because of course your district involves large parts of Callaway County, and you live in New Bloomfield and what the Millersburg area, right? Is that right? Yep. So, and you're going to be your folks are going to be right in the heart of this mess as they start the construction at some point, which is on I-70 with this expansion. No doubt it's needed. It'll be 3 years in the process. My wife and I were driving back from some Christmas visits with folks in St. Louis area, my mom and the in-laws. And as we approached Kingdom City, I said, honey, this is going to be a nightmare. When this stuff starts, this is going to be a nightmare. Can you tell us, I mean, I know there's a limited amount that can be done. It's a reality when construction goes on, but how much forethought, how much planning, how many alternatives, what kind of accommodations will the Department of Transportation and the Highway Patrol, you're an ex-highway patrolman, make for us poor commuters trying to get back and forth?
Well, it is going to be a challenge. Now, the whole I-70 project is not going to take place at one time. They've got it divided into 6 different segments. The first segment that will be started next in 2024 is the stretch from Kingdom City to Columbia, Highway 63 to Highway 54. That's going to be the initial part of the project. They're going to release the award the contracts in February. Construction on that stretch of road will begin in probably this summer. They're going to then, in 6-month increments, release the other 6 stretches of highway. And actually, the last stretch to be done is going to be from Kingdom City to Warrenton. So that part will be pretty smooth sailing for a little while. But each segment is estimated to take 3 years for the construction to take place. So you're going to have stretches where there's nothing going on, and then stretches where there's a lot of construction and delays. But overall, it's something's got to be done, and they're not going to tear up the entire highway and shut traffic down. They're going to add a third lane in each direction. So now, no doubt there'll be sections where they're down to 1 lane of traffic and routing it, and that's going to cause a lot of bottlenecking. So I think as people start to understand where it's taking place and how, they'll start figuring out alternate routes to save time and get to where they need to go.
So one of the questions that comes up is, why don't they do this work at night only or 24/7 so that they're doing the work at an hour when less people are on the road? Or is that a union issue?
Well, I don't know what issue it is. I think they want to try and get it done as quickly and expeditiously as possible. And that's going to rely on engineers and contractors and everyone else. I don't know that we've heard exactly when and how it's all going to take place, but you're still going to have barriers along the road and narrowed lanes where the new lane is being added. So it's inevitable there'll be some bottlenecking and choke points, and especially when I think they start working on the 2 interchanges. When you look at, they're going to have to redesign, revamp Highway 54 and 70, and then the 63 interchange is already, everybody thinks it's a nightmare. So how they're going to straighten that out and change it is we'll see what the engineers come up with on that.
The catastrophic connector, yeah.
Yeah, no question about that. Representative, I appreciate you joining us. Of course, I put up a story. I encourage people to take a look. Two different stories, KWS.com, 939theeagle.com. One angle of the story is the representative talking about this I-70 project and this Kingdom City to Columbia stretch, but we also have a separate story up that I've written that has to do with Highway 54 between the Missouri River Bridge and Jefferson City and the Audrain County line. I think that's a big deal. Representative, I want to go back to, and by the way, Randy, they're going to have to work during the day for a project of that magnitude. And they may work at night as well, but that's going to require some daytime work, no question. It's that big. I want to go back to what you just said about Kingdom City. And, we talk so much here on this station and these stations about I-70 and 63, but people forget how busy 54 and I-70 is. You've got trucks that come all over the country, just like the one at 63, but they're coming in and out of that Dollar General facility down the road in Fulton. They're going up to Mexico for the industry. What have you heard of what they're trying to do there? I know they're trying to rebuild and completely rebuild it, but have you heard specifically what they plan to do there? It's going to take millions of dollars to do that, too.
Well, again, they're going to award that in February, and I think we'll have a better layout of the timeline and the design at that time. They've got MoDOT engineers, but they've also hired outside engineers to give their ideas, so they can truly get the best from everybody before they finalize the design and the sequence of how it's going to be done. The meeting we had at MoDOT, I was really impressed with their approach to it and their attitude about it, because they realize it's going to be very frustrating for people during this 6-year time frame to travel across Missouri. But in the long run, we gotta look at long ball, and the only way to get it done is to do it strategically and as smoothly as we possibly can for everybody.
We hope so. A couple of things in the upcoming session. Want to understand what is on your plate in terms of your priorities. And can one of those priorities, I'm going to ask Senator Cindy O'Loughlin when she's on with us later, can one of those priorities be doing some preemptive work to prevent settlement of this migrant disaster crisis at the border in rural Missouri, in non-rural Missouri? We don't hear much about settlements around the country and resettlement in rural areas, but it's happening. Can anything be done preemptively legislatively?
Well, I'm not sure. I know it's going to be an issue that's brought up. I don't know why we don't have a better feel for how many people are illegally coming into this country, but it is a massive movement. And, of course, our news media is not giving it much attention, so people are just blissfully ignorant about what's happening to the whole country in that case. But I hope we've got some people that are working to do something towards it. It's been talked about in the past session and very limited support that it gets. But I think it's because people just don't understand how big of a problem it's creating for everyone.
Well, I know you're on the committee on Special Committee on Homeland Security, which is why I asked. Finally, before we let you go, government efficiency and downsizing is your committee. Mm-hmm. The budget has expanded enormously, exponentially. That seems to be the reverse of downsizing. Your reaction?
Well, I agree, and part of the reason it's expanded and did all that was there was so much federal money thrown at us that we had to use or lose, and so they did it. But, yeah, I'm encouraged. During the summer, we had several committees got together, and one of them focused a lot of attention on workforce development and how to improve that. And another committee focused a great deal on tax credits and how to put sunsets and caps on some of those that are out there. Ken Hayden up in Mexico led another committee on healthcare reform. So we're going to see some movement for that with pharmacies and rural hospitals and nursing homes. And then Jim Murphy out of St. Louis, his committee focused on taxation and how do we help the citizens of Missouri with property taxes and real estate taxes and things in that issue. And every one of these committees, including Lane Roberts, who had the crime bill last year, is going to reintroduce it and present or address the issues the governor had with it when he vetoed it. So there's been a lot of hard work done during the summer months and the fall months, and I'm encouraged by what we're going to go after this next session and try and make the overall living conditions for everybody better. But you're right. We're going to have to address the immigrant issue, and we did that last year to try and help workforce development with that. And a lot of smart people have really been working hard on it, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they present.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks for the time with us this morning. Hope that we can stay in touch with you throughout the session. Representative Jim Schulte, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Call me anytime, Randy. Thank you.
Okay, we will. We appreciate you very much, sir.
It was very powerful.
It was good.
And I think
Good stuff.
The stuff about the road, specifically that Kingdom City interchange, is huge.
Yep. Hey, I have a new term for the big city mayors when it comes to the migrant crisis. I'll tell you what that is when we come back. On Wake Up Mid-Missouri, that was Brian Hauswirth. There's Stephanie Bell, producer.
limits, making sure they can arrive in a coordinated and orderly way. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson agreed with Mayor Adams on Texas GOP Governor Greg Abbott's handling of migrants.
Road buses and now chartered flights is not only unsafe, it's inhumane.
Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says cities are near shelter capacity and it's time for the federal government to act. If it doesn't,
it will crush city budgets around the country.
The three mayors agree the use of migrants as political pawns must stop. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
So these people suffer from a disease called NAMB. No aliens in my backyard, right? They're happy to talk about it. They're happy to put their chest out when, we're a sanctuary city. But when some of the aliens that are overrunning the border, the healthcare, the education, the social service system in the border states and counties, especially places like El Paso, and okay, we're just redistributing the wealth. Democrats love redistributing, don't they, Stephanie?
They really do.
So this is just another way of redistributing.
I mean, it's terrifying because I think in my mind, the biggest threat to the country is actually our debt and our spending. I mean, I really think that's a huge threat. And but where are we getting the money for these people? I mean, we have so many problems already that we need to address internally. And the fact that, our country's flooded and is really putting a strain on not only local resources, state resources, is going to start putting a strain on federal resources. We can't pay for these people. We just can't.
Center for Immigration Studies released a epic report last week based on publicly available data that showed that 59%, so say 60% of immigrants, and the vast majority of that's illegal immigrants, are using social services welfare, at least one major welfare plan.
I'm sure.
Now, it was scary to find out that somewhere in the mid 30%, I think it was 38, 39%, high 30% of citizens are using those, which is a serious problem on its own. Mm-hmm. But almost twice as many of these aliens, right? And I'm sorry, I don't care. They're not assimilating in the same way that my great-great-grandfather did in the late 1900s when he came from Switzerland.
Legal immigration.
From Switzerland.
Really?
Legally immigrated and married an American lady, and there the Tobler clan was born here, right? Okay, so those first and second waves of immigration, I see this smile on Stephanie's face. She's working something up here. I can almost hear the wheels turning. But I mean, my point was, in previous days, those people came in legally. They came through Ellis Island, and they assimilated into the culture. What's happening these days is, well, forget about the terrorists and the drug dealers and the sex traffickers and all that. They're not here to assimilate.
Certainly not.
They're here to drop babies and then chain migration.
And use our resources.
Yeah.
Get free stuff.
So it's related, right? I mean, you're concerned about the debt and my concern about the existential threat that is the open border.
It's the same thing.
Same thing, right? It's related.
Yeah, it is an existential threat on many fronts. And Joe Biden is doing nothing.
Nothing. He's down in St. Vincent vacationing.
Yep.
Picking the lint out of his navel. What the heck?
I can't get over the fact, though, that that your family's from Switzerland, because I meant to tell you this. Because are you related? Because Toblerone.
It's a very common name.
Okay.
Apparently, it's like Johnson or Smith or whatever over there. Yeah. And
I didn't know Toblerone was named like the chocolate was named after a person, which is a person named somebody Tobler.
I love the Tobler chocolates. They're great. And not just because it's my namesake.
I think I took a picture and I never sent it to you.
Yeah,
I was
great.
like, oh, this is so cool.
They used to be sort of like Lind, L-I-N-D-T.
Yeah, I was at the Lindt factory when I saw all the Toblerone things.
Biden's not picking that kind of lint out of his navel. But I'm just saying, Tobler's great stuff. The chocolate. I'm
going to clip you saying Tobler is great stuff.
And the chocolate. But the first wave, the second wave, they brought skills. They brought entrepreneurship. We're bringing unskilled labor. And then we wonder why we have to pay young skulls full of mush who should be learning to say yes, sir, no, sir, show up on time, $15 an hour to flip a burger at McDonald's. Well, that's because you can get cheap labor.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't know what the plan is. I mean, I think
there's no plan.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that it pushes people to vote in the right direction in 2024, because with Trump, there was a plan and it was to build the wall. And I would give anything to build the wall.
And and somehow he was able to have them stay in Mexico. Now, would you play the Nikki Haley clip? I've got a clip of Nikki Haley. Now, we don't have time? Oh, we don't have time. Well, maybe we'll play it for Raven.
Yeah, let's do.
Oh, we'll play it for Raven. She's a big Trumpster.
She is.
Raven Harrison, I'm going to say, hey, Raven, I could vote for Nikki because of what she said. Well, let's see what she says. We'll do that.
I like this.
We'll dangle the bait on the hook for Raven Harrison when we come back and see if she would be willing, because of the immigrant that was Hannah, the producer, who said, "You're back." And I started. And because there's Stephanie Bell. She's back. How you
Good
doing?
morning.
Producer Hannah.
Did I accidentally say that over the air?
No, you didn't, but you told me I was back because because I was worried about Raven not being with us, but I don't know, we can't reach Raven. So we're going to hang out with you without Raven. Okay? We talked about Raven beforehand, but we'll do that. So I wanted to continue, for those of you who are just joining us, we've been talking a little bit about what we think is the most existential threat to these United States. And Stephanie, you said it's the debt, right? And
I think so.
And the carnage that wreaks on us, right? And the paying the service on the debt and so forth. And I said, well, I think it's the migrant crisis. We have a just unbelievable, unmitigated stream of people coming across the border. They've closed several of the regular border crossings. And Wink and Blink and Nod were down and Mayorkas were down talking with the Mexico president yesterday, and he was begging them to open the border crossing, Well, you know what I'd say is no more border crossing opening. There's not going to be any commerce, no imports from Mexico.
I was going to say, was the border ever closed?
Well, I'm talking about the regular checkpoints, where
Gotcha.
commerce comes through. I would say, hey, you keep the migrants in your side of the border, and maybe we'll think about regular border conduct. I mean, certainly they're saying that, right, Stephanie? Come on, certainly.
I mean, Joe's on vacation. Are they
As you
saying
said,
much
he's
of
been on
anything?
vacation for 2 years or more.
Pretty much. He's checked out.
And I know that, okay, so then we pivot to, and we talked with Representative Jim Schulte. If you didn't get a chance to catch that, you can listen to the podcast. Hannah will have that up when?
By noon.
Well, whatever, by later today.
Yeah.
Don't box yourself into a corner. That's okay.
Yeah.
Later today.
Yeah.
And you'll want to do that because I go back and listen to things that I didn't hear. I catch the end of it. Yesterday it was, forget what it was you guys were talking about. I think it was Fitzwater, and I caught the end of that, the auditor.
Oh, yeah.
And
Fitzwater
is the mayor of Jeff City. Fitzpatrick.
He gets it a lot, apparently.
Yeah, I am
it's
also
a Fitz,
guilty.
Yeah. And so I went back and caught the podcast, on or either the Facebook. There's so many ways to. How can you catch the show? You can catch the show live on the radio.
On the radio.
You can catch it on your
YouTube,
streaming.
YouTube or Facebook.
YouTube. Although Tana said I may have gotten us thrown off because of something I said about what
Getting us canceled.
what Blinken was eating with the Mexican president. Tacos El Pastor. And then what else?
YouTube, Facebook, and then the podcast. And it feels a little bit weird, like tooting your own horn when I say, like, you got to check out the app. It's really good.
It is good.
But I didn't have anything to do with it. So whoever did,
No.
I know Hannah helped plan, but
It's very cool.
the folks in the building who helped with the app. I mean,
Yeah.
it is like, I have other radio stations apps. They're not as good. This one's really good.
It's a good one. It's very responsive, does a good job. And you know what's cool? My wife doesn't like this, but I bought this little radio. You stick it in the shower, and it's a Bluetooth shower radio. So I have my phone out in the bathroom, on the counter, the vanity area, and I played the Bluetooth radio while I'm taking a shower. It's great.
Why is the missus not
I
like
love
that?
because I play it too loud.
Oh.
We've had lots of people tell us
I love
that they listen to us while in a state of undress, and it makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. But apparently a lot of people listen as they are getting ready in the morning.
Well, I imagine that when we do our weekly hits with Christopher Arps,
Yeah.
Tuesday mornings at 6:35, I fully imagine that he is reporting live from his bed and probably still in his boxer shorts.
Yeah, I mean, but that's because we're a family, right? And most families are relatively comfortable when it's getting ready time. You just now my wife grew up in a family where, oh boy, I mean, you were robed all the time and no one. I don't know. I think most families are probably a little more lax about that. Are you a little more lax? We were lax about that with our kids. They were comfortable with the human condition.
Are we gonna? Yeah.
Awkward.
Well, my older kids.
That's not awkward. It's true.
I did breastfeeding for 5 years of my life. And the story is, if you're doing that, I mean, you're just like in a constant state of undress always. And so my kids, I think, are used.
I think it's the proverbial the pastor's daughter syndrome. In the old days, it's like, everything is so cloaked and so puritanical. And then when the kids grow up and they go to college, it's like, woo, time to party.
Yeah.
We know what I mean? So I think that it's
If it's just not a big deal. I mean,
Right,
it's
if it's
like
not a big
alcohol
deal.
in Europe,
Yes.
right? And you grow up and you have a glass of wine with dinner and you're like
Yeah.
14 or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't go crazy when they go to college because it's just no big deal.
You know, I grew up with my dad playing in the music business, you know, and Dad would say, hey, if you want to smoke something, you know, that's fine. Take a look at how the guys are performing after they smoke their dope, you know.
Yeah.
And if you want, you know, or with drinking, if you want to let's go down to the bar and have a drink if you want. I said,
I mean, they don't
not
call
really.
it the jazz cabbage for nothing.
I don't know. Most of the guys I knew played better before than after the first break. I'm sorry. I don't know. Anyway, so we were talking about important threats. And when it comes to Missouri, I'm just worried that all of a sudden we're going to see a resolution in Columbia, Missouri, a resolution in St. Louis, in Kansas City, or something that now we're a sanctuary city, you know, and then the next thing you know, DeSantis or Abbott are sending people up here.
Oh, certainly.
So I think we need to get
that's
ahead of it.
A real possibility.
Okay, but the best thing is what Nikki Haley said. You're going, oh, Nikki Haley, a rhino, globalist. You know, well, no, I mean,
She's catching some heat today, though.
the worst Nikki Haley is better than any Democrat, right?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
So friends in conservative land, at some point we need to circle the wagons, and that circle needs to be fairly wide. It can't be just a narrow MAGA circle. I'm sorry, else you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it all.
I like Nikki Haley.
You do?
Oh, I would. Yeah, I would vote for her.
Is it a glass ceiling thing?
I don't think so.
Okay,
just think,
I don't know.
I think
I'm
she's
just asking.
great. I like her.
Well, what about her interventionism?
That's the one thing that bugs me. But I mean, I think right now I would rather have someone who at least threatens interventionism,
Yeah.
and who has that. I think we bring back that power. And
Trump did that in a way.
Well, yeah, and I think we know that she, would like to intervene, but guess who else knows that she would like to intervene? All of the other countries who are walking all over us now.
Yeah.
And so do I want her to intervene? No. But do I want them to think that she's going to push the nuke button? Yes, I do.
She kind of lost me a little bit
How's
over
that?
the whole social media comments that she made.
She's walked that back.
Yeah,
Oh, well, of course
I mean,
she has, because it didn't go over well.
I don't think she wanted you to. Did she want to know your URL or what was she asking for? Like your name?
Basically, anyone that had a social media account would have to have their identity verified, and it would get rid of anonymous accounts.
What happens about the fact that AI, Facebook, and pretty soon Twitter accounts and everything are going to be so prolific you're not even going to know who you're talking about or with? You okay?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
good.
good.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's play Nikki Haley, because for those of you who say, oh, man, Nikki's surging, I'm getting a little worried. She might do pretty well in New Hampshire. What does that mean? Don't be worried. Don't be worried. Rest your worried heart. Listen to what she said about immigration. You'll be buoyed.
We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil to begin with. And then we're going to make sure that we, instead of catch and release, we go to catch and deport.
There you go. I mean, it doesn't get better than that,
That's perfect.
right?
Yeah.
A perimeter defense is very important. When Steve's Pest Control came out, I found mouse stuff in the furnace room. You know, what the heck's going on? And Steve's came in and they put these mouse baits and stuff on the outside, and some on the inside. Guess what? Within like 48 hours, gone. No more mice. Because perimeter defense is important. And that's why you put glass break detectors on your home. You don't just have motion detectors inside your home. You got to have perimeter defense. It's very, very important. And I don't understand what Joe Biden doesn't get about. Well, I know what is about it. It's about electoral success. It's about, if you turn Texas into even a purple state, but then a blue state, it's all over. Forget it.
It is.
You'll never have another conservative sitting in the White House.
Well, and add all of these folks, coming in, and then all of these cities going to non-citizen voting, and talk about a threat. It's terrifying.
You know what? But I will hold some of our politicians on both sides of the aisle and in our states, with all the protectionism of our children. They can't work when they're 15. We got child protective laws. You can't work and go to school. You know, when I was a kid, I worked. I laid carpet when I was 14. I was in the music business when I was 15. Working band jobs 5 nights a week, going to school. I mean, we can't let kids work now. Part of the reason that we have a workforce problem is because we don't let kids work.
And they don't even work like in high school or college
What
anymore.
the heck?
I mean, you mentioned my parents had small businesses, so
Yeah.
I worked every day of
Sure.
my life, I feel like. It was just expected. But yeah, even through college, kids are like, well, I have to focus on my studies. I can only do like one. And it's like, and I think so many of us, I think we are benefited by being well-rounded. And, there are days when, you have more than one job. I have more than one job. There's a lot going on in your life, and you have to learn how to balance.
Sorry for slacking.
Okay.
Yeah, Hannah, what's up with that?
Okay, so now that's where my sound comes in. I have a sound clip from the Wayfair CEO. I want you to hear this whiny CNN reporter whining about the message that the Wayfair CEO sent to his employees end of year. This is the best.
Tonight's profitable moment. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I read the Wayfair memo from the CEO. Niraj Shah, winning feels good. Winning requires hard work. Find fulfillment in the joy of seeing efforts materialize. Blending work and life is not to shy away from. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I read it because it is so out of touch with everything that I think is what probably is best business practice.
Okay. He goes on, everyone is criticizing the Wayfair CEO because he's basically telling the younger generation, hey, your work-life balance is all screwed up. There's fulfillment in work. And this life over work balance leaves you empty and vacuous and, frankly, sometimes useless to society.
Expensive.
There, I said it.
Yeah, no, I find, I would have another job if I didn't have to sleep. I love working. I think it's fabulous, and it gives your life purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe it's true that my generation and the ones before me overworked, and it was all work, and you work yourself to death, and you heard the old song, well, you never say you took too little vacation on your deathbed or whatever, but I don't know.
I think the data bears that out, though. Like, so many people, they retire and they look forward to retirement, and they're dead like within a year. I mean,
because they retire.
Yes, because they've lost, like, they don't know what to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I think, I have parents who are now retired, and I know lots of retired people, and I think they quickly become very busy with church activities or volunteer activities or whatever. They find other ways to use their time. Maybe they're not getting paid for it,
but they're busy.
But for a lot of people, when you work your whole life, I mean, it's astounding when you look at the data how many people, once they don't have that,
that's right.
They don't have much.
Well, it's like any moving vehicle, right? If you let your car sit in the garage and it dry rots, you got to run it. It's important, especially exotic cars. They need to be run fast. And we're exotic. Everyone on this station, everyone listening, like an exotic Lamborghini. Got to run. That's what it's about.
Well, and I think, you talk about retirement and, knowing how the government is, how those programs are going and my current age and all that. I mean, it's not something that I think about a lot.
No.
I never think that I won't work. And it's just, but it doesn't make me sad. Like, I think it makes some people. I think, I want to get to a place at some point where I can work 2 or 3 hours a day or work, infrequently. But I never think like I'm just going to go sit on a couch or a beach and never work again.
It is true that your transmission does run in overdrive, though. Sometime I'll have to tell the audience about. I'm still recovering from the hour meeting I had with Stephanie Bell yesterday morning. I'm still trying to recover when she told me about all of the marvelous platforms and show prep. And
I tried to warn you, Randy.
It's like a fire hose. Sorry.
Oh man, it was good.
Yeah,
you should be complimented.
Thanks.
But we're going to have to probably do that in chunks, smaller chunks, so I can absorb it.
Trying to get creative-minded people to be organized is a task.
Well, and I suffer from that kind of organizational. Well, but you're organized, but you're creative and organized. I'm just creative and disorganized. So, but that's okay. We work well together. It's good. It's good. I just put up with just have patience. Just have patience. I'll get there.
Your technology is excellent.
When we come back, we'll see what's hot with Hannah. Maybe she'll bring us down to reality, back to earth. What's hot with Hannah coming up?
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
And I'm Randy Tobler. Glad to be with you. And Brian Hauswirth will be joining us as well from time to time throughout the morning. He's probably trying to figure out how we're going to get this Highway 70 and connector thing straightened out. That has me, I don't know, I've got some like anticipatory anxiety over that. I really do.
Oh, I do. And I think anyone in mid-Missouri does because, I think what we heard from Representative Schulte, well, they're just going to add a lane, but there will be times when it's down to one lane. Okay, down to one lane is a problem. And anybody, when they do bridge work, and when I first moved to Ashland, working in Jefferson City every day, my husband and I called it, "Where are you?" Because I said, "I'm at the squeeze," and I forget what they were doing, one of the smaller bridges.
The squeeze.
and it went down to one lane.
Yeah.
And it was like that for like 4 months, and it would back up so bad. And this is just on 63, it was on 63, not on 70.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare, and it added so much time to my commute. And I'm thankful that it's done, but it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, I just hope that they spend as much time figuring out managing the traffic as they do constructing the change. I just hope they do that. But they're experts. That's what they do.
I don't know about that.
Well, the experts always know the right answers, right? Look at COVID.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. On another note, we wanted to talk about a couple. We have porch pirates, we have sinus infections, and we have vice presidential opinions as we now enter the election year, right? We're 4 days away from the election year. It starts January 1. It starts.
It's already started.
Yeah, it started. I know. For those of us that watch the political scene. So what do you think? I mean, there's a lot of names being talked about. Nikki Haley, apparently she's off the table because Trump called her a global rhino. What, globalist rhino?
Yeah, something like that. But he kind of hinted about Vivek Ramaswamy, like he's a good dude, which he doesn't say about many people. And so everyone's like, it's gonna be him. But my question is, does it have to be a woman? Because he got away with it with Mike Pence. There were two guys on the ticket.
He got away with it.
But
what did he get away with?
With not having a woman. And
well,
I think,
that implies he had to have a woman.
Well, and I don't know if that's. Does it help him? Does it hurt him? I think
he needs to have. I think he needs to have a qualified gal. I really do.
I think he's leaning that way.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of different lists out there. I think the most insane one that I saw said that he's considering Carrie Lake, and I thought that would be a disaster.
Why?
She can't win. She didn't win. And she's been on the election interference, election denier stuff since she lost. And I actually thought she was a good candidate.
She's a great candidate.
She was polished and she said all the right things. And then she went insane after she lost. And I just think she'd be a disaster.
She has the best lighting and makeup and whatever, because you pay attention to that. If you're doing that kind of stuff, if you're doing even when I'm in the office doing a virtual visit, I do my best to make a purse out of a sow's ear, but it's like she has something magical going on when she's on the tube on a Zoom.
Well, and I've met her in person. She's just as beautiful. I mean, she's good looking. But should
you know what I mean? The lighting, it's perfect.
And she's a former TV anchor, and she should have a show on Fox, certainly. But I don't think she'd be a good VP candidate. Other than her, people are saying, well, potentially Kristi Noem. I don't think she's a good pick either. And people are saying Trump's really close with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but she's not even been governor for very long. I actually really like Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yeah,
and she
I do
came
too.
to Missouri for our Lincoln days, and I told her story, and I since that day I've been a super fan. I love her. So I think she'd be great.
A breast cancer survivor,
and a mother,
and a mom, and a person of faith. I think she's got a lot of great qualities. Now, some guys, it may have been Hauswirth, told me that he thought that Kristi Noem looked pretty good in a plumber's outfit. I'm just saying. Brian, remember when we had that discussion? Wasn't that over at Golden Corral before they closed? I brought the beer. You had the ribeye. Remember? Don't you remember that?
No, I don't.
Brian spent all morning chalking up his wins from yesterday because as much as he wanted to, he was talking about the snow, and I was kind of like, there's nothing happening. And sure enough, it snowed like crazy yesterday.
It really did. And, we were pretty fortunate. And I talked to the Weather Service. I got to give them, because I'm not a meteorologist, Stephanie and Randy and Hannah, but I do obviously watch the snow. I watch it very close. I'm watching things about a week or two out, just like the meteorologists do. But they were very concerned, and when Melissa Bird, who's the head, kind of the morning bureau chief, if you will, I believe that's essentially what she is at the National Weather Service in Weldon Springs. She was worried about that band. We got very fortunate. Just over in Callaway and Montgomery County, they had 2.5 inches, and just on the east of that, they had 4 inches. So we were pretty fortunate on that. And we're going to get a little bit more tonight, but hope everybody is staying safe out there.
The metaphor. A metaphor hit me about the snowflakes on this snowfall.
Oh, should I find the song? Randy, have you heard the song, Randy?
The snowflakes that fell on this were like the snowflakes over at the campus here, or in the young generation. What's the latest generation called?
Are they alpha?
When they hit hard ground, they just melt. They don't have staying power. That's why we call them snowflakes.
You saw that Candace Owen clip where the gal said, "What do you think about people who feel triggered of you coming to campus?" And she said, "Life's tough. Get a helmet."
There you go. Bingo. All right. There's Stephanie. There's Brian and Hannah. I'm Randy Tobler.
Snowflake song.
Thanks for being here. We've got. Just want to have you set your clock for Cindy O'Loughlin at 8:35. She's going to be with us then. Okay. Very, very important. And then now, who's going to do the? And that would be all except for this segment coming up with John. Are we going to call him on vacation?
Stephanie told me she was going to.
Stephanie, do you have some of that?
It's Hannah. Hannah left me all last week, and I had to do What's Hot with Hannah.
I left you. I was at home, miserably sick.
I'm going to pin the tail on Hannah's donkey because I understand a story that was on my queue about porch pirates. Apparently, there's a Hannah story behind this.
That's great.
So, I did nothing wrong.
So see, Now, Brian, you cover the judicial scene a lot, right? What's the first thing that you cover the circuit, the courts, right? And
all the time.
What's the first thing the crooks say? I didn't do it. I'm not a crook. What did you just hear Hannah say?
It wasn't me.
Yeah, normally, and I actually saw one defendant, Judge Crane was the judge. He did not put up with it very much, but at their initial arraignment, they're really not supposed to say anything. Do they have an attorney or not? And he kept, this particular defendant kept telling Crane, I didn't do it. And Crane eventually cut him off. But I mean, that's not and basically was trying to tell Judge Crane how to run his courtroom. If you know anything about courtroom, Stephanie, you know this, you never tell Judge Crane how to run his courtroom.
Nope.
But this guy was just repeatedly, he was on video, by the way, he's in prison now. He kept saying that he didn't do it. He's in prison for a pretty lengthy sentence. So, yes, sometimes they'll say that, but one of the first things I ever notice, Stephanie may recognize this, I thought the general public won't, but one of the first things some attorneys say when they go before Judge Crane or Judge Harris, Judge Jacobs, Judge Devine, they will look at the judge and they will say, may it please the court. You don't hear that very often, but you do. I'll tell you, Catherine Dolan, when she was the assistant attorney general, she did it all the time. And so did T.J. Kirsch, I believe. You know T.J. down in Jefferson City, the defense attorney. I like that. That probably to most people go over their head, but technically that is it's a sign of respect.
Yeah. And
it's pretty old school. I don't hear it much anymore.
I'm trying to remember, I don't know the origin of it, but the main place you hear it is at the Court of Appeals. You hear that a lot at the beginning of the arguments, either before the Supreme Court or before the Courts of Appeals.
And you're absolutely right about that. But I've also heard it in Cole County Circuit Court, specifically at the circuit level in both criminal and civil. Dolan, I don't think she's an assistant AG anymore. She used to say it all the time, but I'll tell you who also always said it. Great legal mind. I know he listens to the show from time to time. Chuck Hatfield. Mm-hmm. He's argued a number of cases, but I don't always see that. But I find that interesting.
You know, sometime if I ever get a chance to interview a judge, I'm going to ask them if they ever feel as though they have to, and if they do, have to remind themselves of humility in any profession, especially when you're being honored and people are standing up and you have a great position of authority. What do you do to check yourself?
It's a great question.
I mean, as a doc, I know when people come in, they're in a vulnerable position. I have, as an attorney, you're a pastor. There's certain professions that carry that with you, and you have to pinch yourself once in a while and say, when someone says, "I know what the studies say, doc, But when I took the blood pressure pill, my blood pressure went up. Well, what are you doing telling me that? Whoa, wait a minute. Pinch yourself. And I would love to ask judges, do you feel the need to once in a while remind yourself, people are standing up for you? You put deodorant on, you get diarrhea. It's very important for people to maintain a sense of humility in this life. And I think we suffer from that in many, many categories.
I don't see that amongst our judges. I think a lot of, especially here in mid-Missouri, they're very down to earth.
Well,
but
and
I
that's
think
good.
Politicians, I think,
but how,
could use.
But how do they do? How do they maintain that? Because that you can get full of yourself. Look at what's happens to young athletes. That's what I worry about. College athletes getting paid enormous sums of money. Younger people have a tougher time handling celebrity and and honor than other people. I think as you get older, you're like, man, I don't really deserve that kind of thing. I know they got to stand up, but really,
no, it would be great to have it.
It's a good question.
It is a great question. We'd love to have a judge on, Randy, but I totally agree with Stephanie. The judges, particularly, and I've been in Judge Beadham and Judge Green's courtroom.
I'm not accusing them of not being humble, but how do they maintain it?
I think they do, and I would also say the Cole County judges, I know, and they get a lot more attention because all the constitutional issues go over to them at the Cole County Courthouse. But in Boone and Callaway, I can tell you Judge Crane, Judge Harris, Judge Devine, Judge probably leaving Judge Jacobs, and I'm leaving a few of the assistant circuit judges out. They're humiliated, but I mean, it is. I think important for the people in the courtroom to stand up when a judge walks in. I mean, the bailiff comes into court and says, "All rise." It's not the judge that says that. People forget that it's the bailiff. All rise, and you bet your butt. You bet your your rear end.
I want to
up.
make it clear. This is not saying that judges are arrogant, although at some level, in some courts, they are. Look at the judge up in the Donald Trump. You overvalued your property. The guy was like preening for look at me, I'm the judge. That's not cool.
I understand what you're talking about, and Randy, that's a whole different issue for another topic. I think
prosecutors, it's the same deal. People in position of power have to have a little humility.
Fannie Willis getting all pretty before her big
politicians.
But I emphasize. Here in mid-Missouri, we have not seen that.
That warms my
We just don't. We don't see it.
I am thankful for that.
And I would add one important thing here, very important. When the judges, when a defense attorney says, I want to get a continuance or I'm requesting this or that, the judges in Boone and Callaway counties, and Judge Beadham generally does this as well, they will ask the prosecutor, how do you feel? And they will go back and forth. Yeah. And a lot of times the prosecutor and the defense actually agree on something.
There you go.
But they will ask the other side.
That's why
they don't. I would definitely not use the term arrogant.
Good.
I would not. I'm in there all the time.
I hope once again, for the record,
sure.
What do people in positions of authority, like judges especially, who hold enormous power over people's lives, what do they do to avoid believing what people say about them,
I
right?
Understand.
That's
great
important.
Question. It's a great question.
And I
great
say the
topic.
same thing about athletes. You see athletes that are very humble. Every time they score a touchdown, they're praying to heaven, right?
Yes.
That's important in life. I don't think we have enough of that.
And
I've maintained that this postmodern humanistic society we have we don't have enough ophthalmologists, because we got too much eye disease going on.
Well, and I would say, too, in sports, when I grew up, Tony Dorsett used to come to St. Louis and break my heart every year from the Dallas Cowboys, and I used to not like it. But the fact of the matter is, he would take he'd score a touchdown, and he and Roger Staubach would hand the ball to the referee. It was a different era and a much better era, and I wish for God I'd give anything to go back to that.
By that same token, I'm a guy that respects authority. I tremble when I'm in a service member, a judge's, a lawyer, a pastor, a great newsman, a great producer. When I'm in the presence of greatness, I have great respect. But people have to be able to handle that too. And I don't know that we're teaching that to our young people, because it's all about them. They're snowflakes.
Great topic, friend.
Well, there you go. A little lighthearted conversation for this morning. When we come back, and that would be all except for this, with Hannah.
With Hannah.
Maybe the prosecutors are listening. Just saying. We'll be back.
And that would be all. Except for this.
All right, I guess since I couldn't talk Stephanie into doing it for me.
Oh, it's your turn, Hannah.
I'll do that would be all except for this without John Marsh.
Let me set it up for you.
Okay, go for it.
I saw this story about porch pirating up this year. It's
are we
always a
doing that
problem.
here?
But porch pirates, well, not around here, but that I've heard of. I'm sure it happens. I worry about it. That's why I have a doorbell camera.
Yeah, those are nice.
And then I was worried about, is it legal or not to booby trap that? Because I thought, and then, I don't know, that's a Stephanie Bell question. And then I heard that you may have had an experience with porch piratism. Of a sort.
Yes.
For all the right reasons.
Yes.
You going to come clean?
I can. Are we doing that here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've already told this story on the show.
I haven't heard it.
I ordered some Christmas presents to an address that I haven't lived at for almost 2 years. And I had to go intercept the package at the old address.
And be a porch pirate.
Essentially, yes.
Now, did you intercept the mailman, as your TikTok video said, or did you actually have to go to the porch?
Well, I waited for him to put it on the porch, and then as soon as he left, I went and got it.
So what happens if you would have talked to him and said, remember me? I'm producer Hannah, lived at, 5601 rather than 5583?
It had my name on the package.
Yeah.
So I was like, if worse comes to worse, I could show my ID.
Right.
And prove that it's mine.
But you chose to let him drop it off rather than intercept it from him.
Yeah. Well, my dad's a mailman, and he's told me before it's very inconvenient for folks to come up and try to get a package that they're maybe not quite ready to deliver.
Oh. Thanks for being with us. I'm Randy Tolber. Stephanie Bell's there.
Good morning.
With a fresh cup of coffee.
A fresh cup of coffee and a little bit of makeup.
And a fresh face.
A cup of Joe, a little bit of makeup. Hannah, you don't have a fresh cup of Joe. You've got a cup of caffeine, though, somehow.
Yeah, and it's tripping me out.
Because you've been working 3 days straight with no sleep. Right?
Yeah, so I'm trying a new flavor.
Yeah?
And it's called Straw Bango Margarita.
Straw Bango Oh, they were drinking that down in Mexico City when Blinken and Mayorkas.
But the problem is, I don't know if any of the Wake Up family members have tried the Bud Light Strawberritas that were popular a few years ago.
Strawberrita.
Yeah.
No.
It comes in a can, like pre-mixed. It tastes just like that.
Did you say Bud Light?
Yeah. It was from several years ago.
Devin Mulvaney drinking that stuff?
Dylan.
Dylan. It's a D word.
It tastes so similar that I keep having to check the can to make sure that there's no alcohol content and that I'm not drinking at work.
So, can you show that to the audience there on Facebook? Show that. What's the can look like? It's called what now? Straw Bango Margarita. Well,
Yeah.
You like it?
The brand is Ghost. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I just keep having to remind myself I'm not drinking a strawberrita.
Now, Hannah, take a look at the label. How many milligrams of caffeine are in that? I'm just curious. What is that? A 20-ounce can?
16-ounce can.
16-ounce can. How many?
200 milligrams.
Okay, that's like a couple cups of coffee.
What's the thing? How much is in that Panera lemonade that's been killing people?
What?
Yeah, 2 people have died from that charged Panera lemonade.
People are not realizing that charged lemonade from Panera has a bunch of caffeine in it, and
There's charged lemonade at Panera? I didn't know that.
Well, be careful. And yes, they're not realizing that it's got a lot of caffeine. It's like an energy drink, and they're drinking way too much of it.
They think it's just regular lemonade.
But there's, I think, 2 lawsuits over people who've died from a 21-year-old died.
So verywellhealth.com says that one large charged lemonade has 237 milligrams of caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
And the FDA says adults can safely consume 400 milligrams of caffeine every day.
I was at a Panera in mid-Missouri yesterday, and actually at the register, they had a homemade sign that looked like they had typed it on Microsoft Word, and it said, lemonade is not for children.
Wow.
And be careful. Or
I didn't realize that.
Well, folks were having the same issue with those Prime drinks.
Oh, yeah.
So Prime comes in a plastic bottle, and it also comes in like a slim aluminum can. And parents thought that it was all the same product, and they were giving their kids the Prime that came in the slim can.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an energy drink.
And it's too much caffeine for children.
Yeah, the Prime that comes in the plastic bottle is more of like a sports drink or a Gatorade with no caffeine in it.
Mm-hmm.
And parents assumed that they were the same product. And they were not. So they were jazzing their kids up with all this caffeine unknowingly.
I was terrified because I knew we had Prime at home, and I said, what? Prime has caffeine? Oh, my goodness. And then
so you didn't know it?
Oh, no, I had no idea.
Wow.
But yeah, the charged lemonade is getting people, so you got to watch that. But so one charged lemonade only is about the same as your energy drink, Hannah?
It's more than.
Oh.
And it probably has sugar, and mine doesn't.
Okay, so
I'm justifying it.
So you have to be. Well, the problem is, especially I think if you're on other medicines, if you're on a lot of medicines, if you have any kind of inherent cardiovascular disease, if you're older, you're going to be more sensitive to caffeine. It can throw you into an arrhythmia. You can get cardiac arrhythmias from that. And it can really you can get AFib or other kinds of more serious arrhythmias.
Right.
Well, the real bummer is that if I have too much caffeine, it makes my anxiety worse. But when I'm anxious, I want iced coffee. So it doesn't really work out well for me.
So if you need an upper, do you have an official opinion on Zyns?
Oh, goodness.
On what?
Randy's getting an education today.
On Zen?
On Zen.
ZYN.
ZYN.
What is ZYN?
Oh, my goodness. Randy, where have you been?
It's nicotine.
It's the nicotine pouches. And you put them in your lip, and they give you a straight injection. And Tucker Carlson is obsessed with them. And he's been on all these podcasts saying how it gives you the up, but there's no bad stuff because there's no
It's
other than nicotine.
It's smoke. It's smokeless to.
But
it's smokeless nicotine.
But nicotine has been shown to reduce dementia and have all these good properties and other things.
Nicotine also is listed as, at least in a mild way, as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization.
So is Coca-Cola, and I drink it all the time.
Look, I think we all have our ways of waking up in the morning, right? Caffeine, coffee has actually got antioxidants in it.
That's what I tell myself.
It defeats the purpose if you start loading it with cream and sugar and latte.
See, that's the only way I can drink
Frappuccino,
coffee.
and it tastes like a milkshake. That's a different story.
I have a protein shake in mind. That's better, right?
That's probably okay.
It's a caramel protein shake.
Speaking of carcinogens, I was listening to a TikTok, so it had to be official and fact-checked and 100% true. But they were saying that folks who work the night shift, like the night shift is considered a carcinogen.
Why?
Because it's so bad on your body and your health.
Yeah, there's no doubt that people that work night shifts, and it's even worse if you work swing shifts.
If we get here at 5, or do technically we work the night shift?
I think you're okay.
Sometimes.
Well, like my thing, I leave California at 4 a.m. and I have almost an hour drive into work.
Yeah.
And so I need something to wake me up because I don't want to wreck my car.
I think total sleep is really important, right? So if you can get a good 7 or 8 hours, that's good, right?
Yeah, I'm totally doing that.
And yeah, but people that work the night shift, they get their diurnal rhythms messed up. There's things going on with your pineal gland that puts out the melatonin, and it's a problem, right?
You're saying words I don't understand.
Never.
But I think you're right. I think the importance of sleep, and I think especially as you age, I noticed I need more sleep now, and I'm not a very nice person. And my diet will be worse.
You're always a nice person.
Oh no,
I've never seen you been not nice.
Have you, just you wait.
Have you witnessed Stephanie being not nice?
I think Hannah referred to me
just
as
a couple times.
Well,
salty.
maybe if she's an advocate for you at trial, I want her to be not nice. I want her to be a bulldog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to win. But I think
but
sleep affects everything. Whether you're working out, whether you're, trying to choose a healthy meal, all of that. And so I really try to pay attention.
The human body is a remarkably resilient organism with lots of, safety nets, a lot of repair mechanisms. We have to feed it right. We're not doing that very well in America these days. We have to exercise it. We don't always do that so well these days. And that's why we're having a crisis in chronic disease. And it's why our life expectancy has been going down the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
We're not taking good care of our... Look, we maintain our cars. We go to the car wash. We get our tune-ups. We change our... We don't treat our bodies as well as we do our cars sometimes.
Well, and it never fails. Every time I, get too lax on my sleep or I get too ran down, have too much going on, I always get a sinus infection.
Yeah. We know.
Always.
We've heard it the last 3 weeks.
Yep. That time of year.
And you had it last year super bad too. But it's really those sinus infections are going up.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about sinus infection.
Yeah.
What is a clinician to do these days? Probably 95% of, quote, sinus infections. When you're congested, you have pressure, maybe you got some post-nasal drip.
When you can't hear.
Or viral.
Really?
Yes. The vast majority of sinus infections are viral.
Oops.
But it's one of the most common. It's like ear infections in kids. Now don't wait for the end of this. I'm at odds with the medical mainstream community.
Okay.
So any of the if you're an infectious disease expert, if you're a doctor that disagrees with me, 573-874-93, call in 9390, call in, text. We're in a dilemma because it's true that most colds, most sinus infections, most chest yuckiness in most people most of the time will resolve because it's a virus. And if you get some rest, you take good care of yourself, you know.
That explains why mine did not react to the antibiotics and I was sick for over 2 weeks.
Right.
Well, and we found out a couple months ago that the cold medicine that we've all been buying thinking that it helps actually doesn't help at all.
I may disagree with that. It depends what cold medicine you're talking about. I mean, that was about the decongestant.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Because that helps to narrow your... The best thing, if you've got the stuffy, I can't breathe through my nose, is probably to just use a little Afrin nasal spray or,
a
generic
pot.
of that. Well, okay. So a very good friend. Here's the deal. If you have a, quote, sinus infection, get yourself one of those nasal douches, nasal irrigants.
No.
I love that. I love that. It gets a great reaction.
A neti pot.
It's a nasal. It's a nasal douche. But actually, now that people will remember that though. The next time, if I say get a neti pot, they'll go, "What the heck?" You'll remember that. The next time, there's a good one made by Neil Med.
Just don't get the two confused.
No, don't get the two confused. No. But it's the same. It's the same thing. You're.
It's not the same thing.
It's the same concept. Stay with me here. It's the same concept.
You done got my head in the gutter, Randy.
Well,
there's no going
my head's
back.
not in the gutter. I'm up here. Don't. I'm not going to get in the gutter.
But what about?
So there's a good product by a company called Neil Med, I think it's NEIL-Med, and you can buy it at any of the stores. I have some samples in my office. Most docs have a sample in there, and it's a low pressure, high volume. It's a little plastic bottle with what looks like a rocket nose cone on it, and you fill it up with warm distilled water. You should not use tap water.
Why not?
It's possible to get amoebiasis. Amoeba.
Oh.
You've seen the amoeba that sort of creeps around in the microscope,
So where do you get distilled water? Like from the grocery store?
Yeah, you can get it anywhere. And you just warm it up in your
Dasani?
microwave, whatever. You put it in there, just warm it up, not too hot.
Okay.
Lukewarm. And then you put in a little packet of salt it's salt, but it makes it isotonic with your own membrane so it doesn't burn you. And you just you hang out over the sink and you just gently squirt it in one nostril and it either comes out the other nostril out your mouth. And it sounds weird. A very good friend of mine, and you might know this person too, but it doesn't matter. I recommended that for them, and they thought it was a great thing.
The text line, Clay.
Out your mouth?
Summer's Eve, nasal. I didn't even read the text. He said, I nearly crashed my truck.
I didn't say it is. It's a low pressure, high volume flush of a cavity. Now, what else?
Only one comes out your mouth.
Oh yeah, but no. Okay,
so the idea is to clean out some of the allergy. It's good for allergy season too. So do that. That works. That helps open up the sinus passages so that whatever infection is in there, whatever gunk and stuff, that gets drained out. And then I'm also an advocate of using, I like NyQuil. I know a lot of the studies, a lot of the academics will say, you don't need a multi-symptom. The good thing about the NyQuil is it gets you some sleep, and your immune system needs sleep.
I lived off of Dayquil and NyQuil when I had COVID.
But what about, my thing is always when you're feeling that run down, the thing that I really want from my doc is a Z-Pack, the steroid.
And that's probably a mistake.
I hate those.
Because about the time you finished your Z-Pack, your viral infection is going away anyway. The vast majority of the time. God love my mom. I hope mom's not listening. Mom's always calling me on the second day of her cold. I need some of that doxycycline because it always fixed me up. I'm like, okay, Mom, sure, whatever. And then 4 days later, I get the call. Boy, that really worked well. Well, if I'd have given her a placebo, I just can't give Mom a placebo.
It probably would have been the same.
Here's
effect.
the problem, though. Too often, doctors withhold antibiotics these days because we're told we need to be stingy antibiotic, stewards and not do. And so you have to have a discussion. But then on the other hand, patients are grading doctors. Doctors get paid on the basis of partly, and they get graded. And they may make a bonus based on their patient experience scores, their report cards. Huh. You may not know that. Employed doctors are. Private doctors like me, it's like, okay, if you don't like me, you just leave my practice, whatever. I don't get that's my report card.
Bye, Felicia.
But but the point is they're getting graded on these little checkmark things you get.
I thought they were getting graded on how much medicine they were pumping out of their
no.
Their facilities.
And in academic centers, if you do something, if you provide it, if you prescribe an antibiotic prematurely according to the algorithm, forget it. You could lose your tenure. You could get fired.
Really?
Yeah. So the thing is, sometimes it's gone on for 7 days. It's clear. The symptoms are clear, and I mean, it's like you touch the sinuses here below the eyes and people are hitting the roof. I'm sorry, I'm giving that person antibiotics. The algorithm says wait for 7 days. The science of medicine and the art of medicine, we don't do the art of medicine anymore. So when your doctor tries to have a discussion with you about virus, remember that, they're trying to help you. And they may say, hey, look, like with the kiddos these days, with the ears, they'll say, hey, probably going to clear on its own, probably a viral thing. Call me in 24 to 48 hours if it's not better. That kind of a thing. And they're not trying to hurt you.
Ear tubes saved our lives.
There you go.
I think we have 10 sets in our house. Morning, Bell.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. We've got some mixed news on the futures. Dow and S&P down just ever so slightly. NASDAQ up just slightly as the market prepares to open. And we're keeping an eye on beer sales. Now, we know there was a bunch of boycotting and other things. And it's interesting because the beer sales are, Hannah, down to their lowest levels since 1999.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the article
overall, industry-wide, not. I mean, Bud Light is certainly down more than that. And I know a lot of people are getting ready to start dry January. I saw an article last week about how more and more bars are offering mocktails. Yeah.
And I think it's a generational thing. They're saying more and more Gen Zers are are going completely abstaining from alcohol.
Look at us.
Yeah.
Finally something that we don't have to crap on my generation.
Very good idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's a super idea.
And I know during COVID, the alcohol was way up. And so I think the stat is really interesting. So, I mean, really, where is it coming from? And then I'm thinking, are people just, for health reasons, getting away from beer and going to seltzer?
Well, yeah.
Or something, what is behind these numbers? I don't know yet.
We really do. One of the big phenoms is like the fizzy water that not sweetened.
Welcome back, Randy.
Oh, look who decided to join us.
All good.
Hi, Randy.
It's Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. I was taking a beating, Senator O'Loughlin. You know why? We were talking about the advantages of when you get a sinus infection, how you should irrigate your nasal cavity. It's a very important thing to do. You probably do that when you get a sinus infection, don't you?
Well, I mean, there's just some things you don't talk about.
Oh.
This is one of them.
Yeah,
I used the word,
gross.
and I used the word that the British Allergy and Immunology Society uses. It's called nasal douching, and I was trying to clean up my wounds from all the beating I took because I used an appropriate term. At any rate, hey, it's great that you're with us. I wanted to cover things because, of course, the legislative session starts next week. It's a big session. There's a lot of things on the table. I know you have things on your plate, and I think of your job as the majority leader on the floor leader on the Senate as being essentially herding cats, especially with some of the divisions within the party. Do you see any improvement in that this session?
Well, maybe. I mean, it's an election year, and several of the senators are running for other positions, statewide positions. So that adds another dynamic. And so you have to be mindful of some of the legislation they've sponsored and, what they might use that for. I mean, maybe they actually do want to achieve something with it, or maybe they just want it as a talking point to get free press. Mm-hmm. So, which then leads to dissension with the rest of the Senate as they are trying to get done things that they feel are important. So I guess we'll see. Believe me, it occupies a lot of my thinking.
And, we were talking off air, and I will say it on air. I don't know of an elected official that I know that does their homework like Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. I mean, I can speak from the healthcare realm. I know you talked to me and other people about rural healthcare when I was in a leadership position there. I remembered you were going to go over to Cerner and talk to them about, medical records and electronics and this. That. You really do your homework. Are you able to do as much of that and still be the floor leader?
Well, what I try to do, I mean, we have to find a way to maintain the freedoms that we currently have. And how that relates to the question you just asked is sometimes people sponsor things that, while well-intentioned, take away those freedoms and give them to the government. And the government never makes decisions that are better for you than you would have made. And so it's important for me to understand, what each of the senators' priorities are. How is that going to affect the general public? And in my case, I always look at how does this affect the average working individual? Because I think the average middle-class working individual is really taking it on the chin. And I don't want to be a part of that, but I do want to work with each of the senators and try to find a good path for good solutions. So it's pretty complicated, but I spend a lot of time reading legislation, thinking about what the effect of it will be. How do we get something done that is actually good for people? And sometimes the answer to that is do nothing.
Yeah, well, so beyond just the tension within the Senate, there's also a tension between the Senate and the House. And the House often, when we have House members on, we often say, what are we going to do about this? And they said, well, we did it. It went to the Senate and it died. And so, you also have to balance that. And I see there's a redistricting case going on, it looks like. And I guess the HRCC, so, the campaign arm and the Senate version took two opposing views in this case and are on different sides of the issue. And so that's not going to set anything up. But can you talk a little bit about your, how you as a leader in the Senate are going to try to forge that relationship going forward?
Well, I mean, as you just alluded to, the House Republican Campaign Committee decided to file a brief that's basically supporting a position of an attorney who represented Clean Missouri, which is, of course, the exact opposite of what the Republican caucus would want to see implemented. And we did manage to beat that. But the question is, why would the Republican Campaign Committee take a position on a dispute over the Senate map? And, none of the answers that I come up with are very good ones. So, that has created a little bit more conflict, and there's some drama on both sides of the building. I mean, there's no disputing that. So my solution to that is to just sit down with people, talk with them, be honest with them. If I give you my word about what I'm going to do, then I'm going to do it. And I expect that in return. And, when that happens, things go along fairly well. And when it doesn't happen, then, I confront the person about it and talk about it. I mean, our word is really all we have. So it's too bad we can't take the politics out of politicians, but we're elected to do something good for the people of the state, and that requires serious thought, and in my opinion, it requires honesty and integrity.
Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, the majority leader of the Missouri Senate, joins us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Randy, thank you so much. Am I up? Oh, there I am. Randy, thank you so much. Senator, we appreciate you joining us live. I think it is very important to note, to remind everyone, Republicans have a Republican governor right now in the governor's mansion. They have super majorities. And I'm not preaching at you, I'm preaching to the audience. I don't think this really gets reported much in both chambers. 24-10 in your chamber and a super majority of a 111 to 51 in the House. So quite frankly, if they've got united, they could practically pass anything that they want, but they have not been able to do that. One bill that definitely grabs my attention, Senator, and I guarantee you it's going to get some attention this session, probably early on. Your colleague, Senator Denny Hoskins, Republican from Warrensburg, has filed a bill dealing with video lottery terminals, VLTs. If people know, if they've been in gas stations, probably seen these slot machines. This bill would issue licenses to video lottery game manufacturers, retailers, and they could put them in truck stops. They could put them in veterans organizations, fraternal organizations, and in business entities licensed to sell liquor by the drink. I'm looking at straight off his bill. He's battled with some of the members. He and Cable Rowden have been very clear they don't see eye to eye on this bill. What do you see happening on that bill? And have you had a chance to talk to him about your thoughts on that bill?
Well, we've talked about it at great length in, past sessions, and the video lottery terminal issue is something that I doubt seriously gets resolved this session. And when you talk about the supermajorities and the fact that if everybody would become united, that, we could pass anything we wanted, that, of course, is true. But the reality is, unless people are willing to compromise somewhat, you will not get 18 votes on the Senate side. So, if you take 24 people and you sit them down in a room and you say, we're going to solve this problem over here, what is your solution? You're going to come up with 24 slightly differing versions. And so you have to have people who are willing to say, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's the goal we're trying to reach, and where can we come together for the common good? And that is where you sometimes run off the rail. And we have some people in the Senate who are totally unwilling to accept 90% of what they would like to accomplish, which, kind of works with everyone else there. They want 100%. And if you think about it, they can go home and say, I had this bill and I had the perfect answer, but I couldn't get the rest of the people to go along with me. And so then that's where the term rhino starts flying through the air, or, status quo or establishment. And I dislike that because it takes away from sitting down and seriously considering what are the differences in what you're trying to do and how do you manage to come together to get it done.
And Senator, I just want to follow up on that very quickly about the point about the 24-10, and really appreciate your perspective because I sense some frustration with some of the members of your own caucus from your comments. But I bring that up in that I was there as a reporter in 1996, and the Democrats were in control, and they didn't have supermajorities. They were, let's say, 90 to whatever it was. It was probably a 20 to 25 seat majority at that time. But there were there were hundreds of bills. Governor Carnahan signed hundreds of bills, and a lot of them, people forget, were Republican bills that he signed. Now, and I know things have changed, you might have, let's say, and I know these are omnibus bills, had a lot of things in them, but you might have 40 or 50 bills. You just don't see the passage of things that you used to see before, and you know that.
I think, sometimes people listen into what's going on the Senate floor, and the comments that I've gotten are, what are you all doing? I mean, if they're listening.
We've heard that. We hear that loud and clear. It gets texted to us and called in. Yep.
Yeah. And, they're frustrated, and it's difficult to explain to people. But I think I would put it like this. When you have a supermajority, it seems to me that people, in order to try to differentiate themselves from the group or to be able to claim the mantle of the most conservative, which, when you think about it, anybody could define that almost any way they wanted, they will go to the extreme and refuse to bend even a little. And so ultimately what happens is you get nothing because, there's a reason that people say that being a senator in Missouri is one of the most powerful positions you can have. And really not in a good way, but the power comes from being able to kill anything that you want to. And so I feel, the incentive sometimes for people to try to negotiate something or compromise on something just goes out the window, especially if they are people who are concentrating on moving to the next level.
Yeah.
They sacrifice doing the job they're supposed to be doing right now because they're thinking about what they can do to get to the next level. I don't like that.
At the risk of referring to something we talked about earlier, you'll find this interesting, Senator. I think what you're talking about is humility. And I was just talking about, I don't know how we got into it, but we were talking earlier about what is it that keeps judges who, they're in black robes and they have such authority over people and everyone stands up. What keeps people in positions of power pinching themselves to remind themselves that they're human beings and to just tone down what people are saying about them and stop believing it so much? Maybe that would be well informed for some of our other senators to hear. Is that maybe concordant with what you're saying?
Well, it is important. And, one of the reasons that I spend so much time talking with regular people, and we're all regular people, but we're in sort of a special position for, a limited amount of time. But when you talk to the average individual and you see what the effect could be if something was passed, how it's going to affect their life, it brings you back in touch with reality. And if you're not in touch with regular working people, and the only people you talk to are either, other politicians or someone within that little bubble, you pretty soon start to lose reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can see that at the federal level every day.
Yep.
And it's important to actually talk to the people that you're affecting with the things you're trying to do. And when you do that, it brings you back to, oh, okay, I'm one of these people too.
Right.
And it won't be long, and I'll be right there with them.
Well, that's what makes you a great leader and a great individual and a person of high integrity. I'm confident that despite the heavy lifting that you have to do, it'll be a great session, and we thank you for taking on that very daunting role and for being with us. Hope you'll check with us It's that time of leftovers. We open up the fridge, and Hannah's got something.
I do.
What do you got?
Does the name Gypsy Rose Blanchard mean anything to you guys?
No, Gypsy Rose Lee, but not Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Really? So she is from Missouri, the Springfield area.
Okay.
And she's sort of famously known for being a victim of Munchausen by proxy.
Oh.
Her mom, Dee Dee Blanchard,
was
the one on the giving end of that disorder. And Dee Dee was murdered by Gypsy Rose's online boyfriend. And Gypsy and the boyfriend went to jail, essentially, for murdering Dee Dee. The boyfriend was trying to rescue Gypsy from that scenario, and they were trying to run away together into the sunset. There were some mental health issues on his end as well. I'm surprised you guys haven't heard of this.
I haven't heard of that.
Case.
Have you?
I have. Now that I see the pictures, it looks familiar.
Yeah, there was a Hulu documentary made a couple years ago that's really good that I would highly recommend folks check out if you haven't seen it. It's called The Act on Hulu.
My goodness.
But it's a really famous Missouri case.
How old?
It was 2015 when she stabbed her mother.
Yes.
So did she serve time?
She did.
She did, and she's getting out today. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Oh, my.
She is being released from the Chillicothe facilities today. So that's been trending again.
That's not enough time. If you stab your mother, you go to prison for like 6 years, 7
She didn't
years.
do the dirty work. It was the boyfriend,
yeah.
but she conspired.
Wow. Something else. I don't remember that.
I feel like if you murder people, you should be in for longer or conspire
Even
to
if you're a
murder people.
victim of Munchausen by proxy?